Okay, the schus of our learning should be a panacea and a refuah shalema for Yichel Masud Ben Sarah. Okay, we'll start today Samach Aleph. Amud Aleph, that's 61a towards the top. We just finished off. We've quoted Rav Office. Okay, we start with Taner Rabbanan. I'm sorry, B'chein Behechal, B'chein B'mizbeach. Okay, this was a quote from the Mishnah, where the Mishnah says that if you went out of order, it's ma'akiv, and the next thing is that if it spills, it's a problem. What do you do if the blood spills? So the first opinion was the Tanakama said that you redo wherever it's spilled. If you already sprinkled the blood in the Kodesh HaKodashim and it's spilt in the Heichel, so you redo the blood in the Heichel. The Kodesh HaKodashim was satisfied already. That was accomplished. There was another opinion of Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Shimon. They say even in the Heichel, if you started to do 2 sprinklings or 3 or 4, and it spills, so that's where you start. You start from number 5. That was the machlokes that we had. Whatever the case is, everyone seems to agree that you don't have to go back and redo previously sprinkled places, the Kodesh HaKodashim, the Pareichas. Whatever, if it was done already, then it's done. So, B'chein Behechal, B'chein Mizbeach. The same two would apply to those places as well. Taner Rabbanan, it was taught in a brisa. B'chiper es mikdash hakodesh. Oh, you can get the psukim in this Gemara. No. The pasuk will be quoted over here. It says that he will atone for the very holy, and then it will say Ves Oyel Mayed, and it'll atone for the Oyel Mayed and for the Mizbeach, and it will atone the Kayanim and for the people. It will atone. There's some extra words in there. Where the Gemara? There's a pile over here. So the brisa explains this pasuk. It's the pasuk by Yom Kippur, by the conclusion. It says what he's going to atone for. B'chiper es mikdash hakodesh. He will atone for the very holy. Zelifnai b'lifnim. That's the Kodesh HaKodashim. Okay, good. Rashi explains that what are we talking about here? We'll atone for the Kodesh HaKodashim. It means that if someone was tamei, and he knew that he was tamei, but he forgot, and then he goes into the Kodesh HaKodashim. Big problem. I don't know what he's doing in the Kodesh HaKodashim. Forget about being tamei. Maybe, yeah. So he goes into the Kodesh HaKodashim. So this the sprinkling of the blood is going to be an atonement for that sin. What are we talking about? Impurity that was forgotten, and he goes into a place where he shouldn't be. So the blood of the animal on Yom Kippur will atone until he remembers what he did, and he has to bring his own carbon. But this is like a temporary atonement, right? Not in the kind of no, he's going to have to bring a asham, right? If he's tummy and he goes into the home. Oyel Mayed, the Heichel. What is Oyel Mayed? That's referring to the Heichel. That's the first room. Again, if he was tamei and he didn't realize it and he goes in, so this would be this application of blood would be an atonement. Mizbeach kemashboi. That's as the Mizbeach is. The Mizbeach is exactly what it sounds like. That if someone was tamei and he goes on the Mizbeach, so this would be an atonement for that as well. Yichaper, that's an extra word over there. That's Elu Azaris. That's referring to the courtyards. HaKayanim kamashman. This is if the Kayanim did that over here. Amakal Eli Yisrael. What is Amakal? That's referring to the Yisrael. Yichaper. It says Elu Halaviyim. Usually you don't get Levium separated from the here you do. Okay, so it's going to be atonement for the Kayanim, the Yisraelim, and the Leviim. Bushvukulam lakaparachas. They all get one atonement. Well, we have this, the end of the pasuk sort of throws everyone together. Now, the way Rashi explains this is that the Kayanim themselves, for Tumas Mikdash, they have an atonement from the par, from the bull. That the bull was a special carbon that went just for the Kayanim, for the family of Kayanim. And the Sayer was for the Yisraelim. So who's for everyone? So what is this in this pasuk that we say that it's an atonement for everyone together? So this must be for other sins, and we're talking about the Sar HaMishtaleach, the vidui of the Sar HaMishtaleach. Before the goat is sent off the cliff, there's a confession that the Kohen Gadol makes. That confession is atonement for everyone together. Which, for what sins? It says for other sins. Okay, so we went through this pasuk that sort of like summarizes the atonement that takes place on Yom Kippur, and we said that there's atonement that takes place for Tumah in different places. There's atonement that takes place separately for the Kohanim and for the rest of the Jewish people, and then there's an atonement that's for everyone together, and that's the vidui of the Sar HaMishtaleh.
So this must mean that it's the Kohen being common. Is it a Kodesh Gedalia? The activity there is so valid. It doesn't mean that. Doing it.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because
I don't know.
we are the Sar of Mishtaleh. At the end of the day.
Oh, that's what you're saying. I don't know. I don't know if it makes something valid. It's there was a sin that was committed, and this is an atonement for that sin.
I'm saying it's still, here's it's still valid. Well, it's not.
No, we're not saying that. You're thinking that.
If he became
He was telling me on Yom Kippur.
he doesn't get atonement at all. The vidui of the Sar HaMishtaleh.
No. Right. The vidui of the Sar HaMishtaleh is not going for Tumas Mikdash. That was for the par. The par was the Tumas Mikdash. He wasn't tummy when he offered the par. He was tummy some other time that he went in. I don't know what he was doing in there, but he was tummy went in. Maybe it was cleaning.
No, but there are all these activities in between affecting the part of the streets of the blood at the end of the day.
Okay.
I'm saying he was Tommy.
Oh, anytime during that time.
Yeah.
Oh, so then there would be an atonement from the sending off of the goat. Okay. Could be. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Reb Shimon Aimer. Reb Shimon says, "Kshem shedam asar hanas b'pnim mechaper al Yisrael b'tumas mikdash hakadosh." The dam asar. We mentioned that the goat of the pair. There was a pair of goats. One was sent off the cliff. Another one was considered a chapas. That chapas was brought inside. That was the blood that we were speaking about. And there was the bull and the goat. That's the goat that we're referring to. Just like the blood of that goat that's done inside. That's an atonement for the Jewish people. So too, the damapar is mechaper for the kayanim. That seems to be the same, like we said before. That I don't see a difference there. Just like the vidui of the Sar HaMishtaleach atones for the Jewish people for other averos, so too the vidui of the par. You see, this is where there's a switch here, where Reb Shimon says a little different. He's separating the vidui from the par, from the blood of the par. He's saying that the vidui of the par atones for the kayanim for all the other sins. The blood of the par atones for the kayanim for the tumas mikdash if they were tummy and they didn't know when they went inside. The vidui of the par atones for other averos. That we didn't have in Rabbi Yehuda. In Rabbi Yehuda we said the vidui of the Sar HaMishtaleach would atone for other averos, for everyone. Okay, Tana Rabbanan. But the reason why we're getting into this is because we said that every location of application of blood was a separate atonement, and therefore, if it spills, you get to, when you start over, you don't have to go back to the previous ones. So we're dividing it up into each atonement that takes place. You don't have to go back and do things that were already atoned for. He will conclude from atoning, for cleansing from the holies. This is referring to the Kodesh HaKodashim. Oyel Mayed, when the pasuk says Oyel Mayed Zehichel, this is referring to the Kodesh, the first room that he enters. Mizbeach Kimashmai. Mizbeach is Mizbeach. Malamit Shekulan Kapara Kapara B'fnei Atzmai. This tells us that each of them are a separate atonement. Okay, that's what we were looking for in quoting these prices. Mikan Amru, and from here they said, Nasan Mitzvah Matanis B'fnim Nishpach Adam. We requote the Mishnah that if the application of blood was given inside and then the blood spilled, Yavi Damach v'Yaschel b'Tchila b'Matanis B'fnim. Nasan Mitzvah. This is because Mitzvah Matanis B'fnim. He gave part of the blood inside. Then he has to start over from the beginning. Whose opinion is that? The Tanakama of our Mishnah, which we're going to call soon Reb Meir. Right? Stam Mishnah is Reb Meir. So we're going to just say that this was the opinion of Reb Meir. We'll see that soon. Rabbi Lazar and Reb Shimon, Rabbi Lazar and Reb Shimon say, yesterday we mentioned that it's not Rabbi Lazar, Reb Shimon's son. It's his friend. Rabbi Lazar and Reb Shimon say, you don't have to go back and start over from the place where it's spilled. Start over from the beginning of that. You can just continue from where you left off. Was anyone ever in a shul where the chazan couldn't continue chazar sashatz? Something happened. He couldn't speak. I was in a shul where the chazan couldn't continue laning. My father told me I was a kid, had a frog in his throat. And I was trying to think, like, what? I never heard that expression. So I was trying to imagine a frog. But so they had to get someone else to continue the kriya. So I think he just started from that pasuk. And I think that would be the same thing in Chazar Sashatz. He doesn't start over. He's up to Baruch Aleinu. He just continues from Baruch Aleinu. So here it's a little awkward, but I was in a show where the chazan just walked up from the people weren't responding. Amen. He just left. He just walked out. He was upset. Yeah. 3. Yeah, you got to get a total of 10 in the whole kriya. Yeah, so you could split that up. All right, but that would be with an after bracha and all of this. We're just saying, like, you just to stop in the middle because the blood spilled over here, and then someone else walks in, just continues from number 4 or number 5. You're not supposed to do 7. 7 plus 1 is 8. So, and then just to start over, that would be the opinion of Rabbi Lazar and Reb Shimon. Okay, this is the main point over here, is that once you completed one service, you go to the next service. So you don't have to go back to the first service. You have to bring other blood, but then you start from where you're up to in the Heichel, but not mamish where you're up to. You restart that thing, that process that you're in the middle of. If you're in the middle of the Heichel, and then it spills, you have to restart where you're up to. No, you don't have to restart it. You continue exactly where you were up to. Everything is very consistent. Yeah. Rabbi Lazar and Reb Shimon have their opinion. Reb Meir has his opinion. If you completed the Heichel, now the Heichel here is referring to the sprinkling on the pareiches, or towards the pareiches. Then, if you've completed the sprinkling on the pareiches, then you go straight to the mizbeach. There were 4 applications on the corners. If it was mixed beforehand, then you do 7 on the top. Is it 7 and 1 or 7? 7 on. Oh, so it's not 44. Yesterday we thought that number 44. Yesterday we removed one, I think. Okay, it's not done. It's Doug. No, it's not Doug. It's Gam. Okay. So Yavi Damach B'Tchila Matanas HaMizbeach. Nasa Miktas Matanas HaMizbeach Nishbach Adam. Let's see the middle of the Mizbeach. Those applications, it's 4 and 7. So Yavi Damacher V'Yaskel B'Tchila B'Matanas HaMizbeach. So really, he's got to go shech the new carbon, and he comes back, and he just starts from wherever he's up to, but from the beginning of that service. And Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon, and Makam Shapasuk Umaska. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Shimon say that you just continue where you're up to. Mamish, where you're up to. You did already 3 on the corners, you just did the last one. Let's say you're totally completed with the Mizbeach as well. There still is one more service that you're supposed to do. That you're supposed to go outside and pour the remaining blood on the southern side of the foundation of the Mizbeach. So, but that, if the blood spilled before you did that, everyone says that that's not makriv. We had a machlokes before about shirayim makriv, but Rashi told us that it's referring to the order of the shirayim. So it sounds like if I don't do it at all, it sounds like it's fine. But if I do it out of order, that could have been a problem, according to one opinion that we had before. You follow? Sometimes it's just like with, I give you application papers to fill out, but you don't know how to fill it out. If you leave it out, you're fine. But if you fill it out and you did it wrong, you're in trouble. Okay. So, Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan comes along. Rabbi Yechanan is an Amayra. He's going to explain what the Tanoim, what the logic of these Tanoim were for arguing about if they have to restart from the beginning of that service, or if you can continue from where you're up to. So there's a Shnei Mikrei Chadarsha. They both learn from one pasuk. It says that they sprinkle midam chatas hakipurim achas bashana, from the blood of the chatas of atonement once a year. Reb Meir Savar chatas achas amartilach v'lo shtei chatois. What's going to happen, according to Reb Meir? If you do, let's say you have 7 applications that you're supposed to do. You did 3 of them, and the blood spilled. So you come back with another chatas, and you do the other 4. So then you did 2 chatos. So Reb Meir says, cancel the first 3 that you did, and restart, and it's 1 chatas. You have to start over. You can only have 1 chatas. If you do 3 and then 4 from the next one, then it's 2 chatas. It says achas. Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon Sabri, they say different. They say exactly the opposite. You're supposed to have 1 application. You're doing 2 applications. You're doing that number 3 that you did, the first 3, you're doing it twice. You have to do it once. So that means that I can't repeat anything. If you're repeating it, then you're doing it twice. That means you can only continue from where you're up to. They're learning from the same word, achas. What achas is referring to? Achas means that, according to Reb Meir, achas means that it needs to be just not divided in half. 1 whole one. And start over. And according to Reb Elazar and Reb Shimon, it can't be repeated. So don't start over. You have to continue from where you're up. They're using the same word. But what does 1 mean? 1 means not divided in half, or 1 means not repeated. Only once. Okay. Tanya, we'll start in a brayso. Amar Rebbe. Rebbe says, Li chilek Reb Yaakov belugan. To me, Reb Yaakov said that it's different when it comes to the lug. Lug is the jug of oil that was put on the thumb and the toe and the head of the Mitzvah. That if the oil actually was sprinkled as well. It was sprinkled in the heichal. Remember, we made a difference. Oh no. that was by the other karbanos, how far in the Heichel they went. But whatever the case is, Rabbi Yaakov, according to some, is the grandson of Elisha ben Abuya. Remember that Gemara at the end of Chulin, we learned that Elisha ben Abuya sees a child going up. His father sends him up to send away the mother bird, doing 2 mitzvahs that it says on it that to live long, and the child falls down and dies. So Elisha ben Abuya loses his faith. He's called Acher, right? And Rabbi Yaakov, his grandson, came along and said that the pshat in those psukim is not that you'll have long life in this world, but in the world to come. This is his grandson. Anyway, this is Rabbi Yaakov, according to some. And Rabbi Yaakov here is a teacher of Rebbe. And Rebbe says, Rabbi Danas says that Rabbi Yaakov told me that there's a difference when it comes to the lugim of the Mitzvah. What would the difference be? That Reb Meir and Reb Elazar and Reb Shimon don't argue. Well, so who did they agree with? So they would agree with that you have to restart, because it says loy echad, that you have to restart. No one would say chita yechad, one application. You have to restart. The whole thing has to be done in one with one jug, not half with this and half with that. So that's what Rebbe is saying from Rabbi Yaakov. The Gemara says, "V'loy." There's no machlekes about the lug. The lug is the measurement of the material, the oil. But we have a brisa that says that there is. Nasan mixes matana shebifnim v'nishmach halug. Let's say he did some of the applications of the blood, the sprinkling of the blood inside, and then the oil spilled. Yavi lug acher. You bring another lug, okay, and what happens? He goes back and he starts them over. Who holds that? Reb Meir, the Tanakama, right? Reb Elazar, Reb Shimon, Mimakam Shapasik Maschel. Mamish the same machlekes. There's a problem here. There's a problem. Gomer matana shebehechel v'nishbach halug. Let's say you finished it. Yavi lagachav yasel b'tchil matana shebehainas. So you start with the thumbs. Okay, good. You completed it. That everyone would agree. Nasan mixus matanas shebehainas v'nishbach halug. Let's say you're in the middle of putting the application on the thumbs. Yavi lagachav yasel b'tchil matana shebehainas. You have to restart it. Whose opinion? Reb Meir. Reb Elazar, Reb Shimon, Makom shapasik maschel. Elazar and Shimon say no. You restart. It's mamish the same machlekes. Gomer matana shebahines v'nishbach halug. Let's say you finish putting it on the thumbs. So divrei kol matana sareish le'makos. It says that the remaining of the oil, he puts it in his hair. He puts it on his head. Let me say his hair. It says that's not roish. Roish hamatar. Puts it on his head. So there's a big problem here. Like what do they say? Something is not clear. Something is not. There's a contradiction here. So Ema, rather you have to say this different. Li shana Rabbi Yaakov belugan. Not that he was mechalik, that he said that there's no machlekes by the lug. Exactly the opposite. This machlekes that we have between Reb Meir, Reb Elazar, Reb Shimon about Yom Kippur, Rabbi Yaakov taught it to me about the lug of the Mitzvah. I heard the same machlekes. Where I hear it? About the Mitzvah. The same thing applies to Yom Kippur. We learned it by Yom Kippur. Rebbe says, I heard it from Rabbi Yaakov about the Mitzvah. That was an easy fix. Just correct the word. From being different to being the same. Amar Mar was taught, Matane Sureishain Makvis. To put the application of the oil on the Mitzvah's head, right? He's in the middle of his atonement here. And he brings one carbon. What carbon does he bring first? I think he brings the chatas first or something. Then from the chatas he does all the blood. It goes on his fingers and on his toe, and then the oil, and then the oil goes on the place of where the blood was from the chatas. And then he brings some other carbonas. But the oil, the remaining oil, goes on his head. Was that how it worked? It looks out.
The oil is the very last.
I'm not sure. There may have been something Karbanis that he does after that. Okay, whatever the case is, for this, it's the last thing. So, my timer. Why does everyone agree, Matanis Suresh Lemakvis, that the Matnas Suresh, the putting the oil on the head? Why everyone agrees that that's not market, that's not indispensable. It's not hechrechi, right? Everyone agrees that if it's not done, it's acceptable. My timer, what's the reason for this? If you say because it says in the pasuk van Neisar min Hashem, what's left over from the oil is put on his head. Well, elamiata vanisaris min mincha chanamid lemakvi. What's left over from the mincha? So you're going to say it's not makif? There's a problem over here. Neisar, what's left over? You're supposed to do things with what's left over. Mi yeser Hashem in it, I think it says. What's left over from the blood, you're supposed to put on the foundation of the mizbeah. So what's left over from a mincha is supposed to be eaten by the kainim. If what's left over from the mincha gets destroyed, gets lost, before the kaimitz was brought, then the karban is invalid. So that it is significant. The mincha is invalid. You need to have the remaining part of the mincha. Now you're telling me that if what's left over from the oil spills, it's not a problem. Why? Because it says in the yeser. So what? It says vaniseres min mincha. Achanamid le'ma'akiv. That what's left over from the mincha, that's significant. That's ma'akiv. That's indispensable. The Gemara says shani hasam tiksiv u'miyeser v'hanaiser. It's a double leftover. The oil itself is called leftover. Then it says, V'hanaiser min Hashemen. So it's like shirayim of shirayim. That's why over here it's going to be dispensable. It spills, it's acceptable. Okay. We're on top of Samech Aleph Amid Beis. Asham Mitzayra. I'm sorry. Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Asham Mitzayra sheshachta shlei l'shmai. The asham of the Mitzayra. The guilt offering. It's shechted shlei l'shmai. Rashi tells us that it was shechted for the sake of a different sacrifice, for an oila or for a shlamim. So the rule is that the sacrifice is valid in the sense that you don't take it off the mizbeah. You continue to sacrifice, but it doesn't help the mitzayra. It doesn't. He needs another sacrifice. So banu lemachlekas Rab Meir Rab Elazar Rab Shimon. We've now entered into a machlekas, into the machlekas that we had before of Rab Meir and Rab Elazar and Rab Shimon. Rab Meir Damar Yavi Yachav Yasu B'Tchila. Reb Meir says that you always have to start over from whatever the atonement is. You have to start over. You need another sacrifice. The comparison is not perfect. The comparison was over there the blood spilled, and you had to start over from whatever service you were in. Here, we're not saying the blood spilled. We're just saying that it wasn't effective. So therefore, you have to start over. So you bring another sacrifice and you start over. Rabbi Elazar Rab Shimon say that you just continue. Here, there's no way of continuing. What's the problem? The problem is because it says Kevas Echad Hashem. I'm not allowed to bring a second one. I have a source that I can't bring a second Hashem. So, according to Rabbi Meir, well, let's just count it like we did nothing. According to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, we don't count it that you did nothing. We count it as something, and you just continue for your up to. Now you're in trouble because you can't bring a second one. Right? You can't delete. That's the problem. According to Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Shimon, you can't delete and reset and start over. According to Reb Meir, you do delete and reset, and then you start over, so it's fine. Maskefla Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda asked the question, is it possible Rav Chisda is asking a question to Rabbi Yochanan? I never saw Rabbi Yochanan, I don't think. Maskefla Rav Chisda. It's strange. To who? Oh, maskef lay means to this. Usually maskef lay means to him. He objected to him. What does it say? What's it? Oh, in Sefaria. I wonder how the art scroll has it. Yeah, I'm just saying because Rav Chisda lived in Babel. He wasn't in the time of Rabbi Yochanan. He was after Rabbi Yochanan. It was later than Rabbi Yochanan. I mean, Rabbi Yochanan would have been very old. And I don't think they ever met. At least we don't find any conversations. He asked the question, he has a question on Reb Meir. According to the way we're saying that, according to Reb Meir, you can delete it. There's a little bit of a problem. The pasuk says that you wave the sacrifice together with the oil. Now, once you've done that already, so it says Isai. That's that korban is the one that's placed. The blood is placed on his fingers and all of that. How can you do another one now? It already says that that's the one. According to Reb Meir, you have the same problem that you're saying that you go, just restart it. You can't restart it because you've already waved it together with the oil. You can't restart it. It says I saw that one. That's his question. The Gemara says kasha. Okay. Tanya Kavasei Rabbi Yochanan. That's interesting. We have a kasha on Rabbi Yochanan. Now we have a support. Asher Mitzayir Sheshachtis Leila Shmai. And Asher Mitzayir, the guilt offering that the Mitzayir brings as part of his atonement when he's coming back, when he's being purified. So if it's slaughtered for a different intention, which we said was for a oila or a shlamim, we're learning according to Rashi. There's other commentaries. Or if the blood wasn't placed on his thumbs is of his fingers and of his toes. It's put on the altar, and this asham also requires nesachim, which are libations that come along with it. However, it doesn't atone for this person. He needs another sacrifice. You see what's going on? You can bring another sacrifice. That would only fit the way Rabbi Yochanan explained Reb Meir. See, Rabbi Yochanan was right. Rav Chisda Malach, what would Rav Chisda respond to this? He had a strong kasha. He said, you can't bring another one. He says, it says, Oisai it, you're stuck. You know what Rav Chisda would tell you? My tzarech. You know what when it says it's necessary to bring another one, you know what it means? Tzarech vein like takana. It's necessary, but you can't. Necessary doesn't mean that you do it. Necessary means that you should, you need to, but it doesn't mean that you're allowed to. It's necessary to, but yeah. Okay. You okay? Zalman, you got it?
Yeah, no, it froze, and then I don't know what happened.
Oh, okay. That's the electronic things. Over here, we're all healthy.
Oh, okay, everybody's good.
Okay. So, what's the problem? Yeah. Necessary, but can't. Right. One of the Kedusi shows, he said, what's Jono? It's like, what's your name? You remember these things? He said, Jono, he said, your name must be Jonathan. He says, no, it's not Kelly. It says something like about because my parents wanted to name me Moshe. I said they wanted to, but they named me Naphtali. So anyway, this is what's going on. That's what's going on here. You're supposed to bring another one, but you're not allowed to, so you're stuck. Okay. So the Gemara asks. This is a strange statement. We don't find it that tzarech acher it doesn't mean that you can't do it. Tzarech acher you need to, but you can't. The Gemara asks, Tani Tana tzarech vein like takana. Does the Tana ever do that? Do we ever find Tanaim that say the word tzarech that it's necessary, and it means that you're not allowed to do that? The Gemara says yes. V'hatanya. Here v'hatanya means. And this is what we find in a brayse, not how can mean in but, which would be a question. But how can also mean in this. V'hatanya, and this is what we found in a brayse. Nazir memayrat. This is a nazir that's bald. A nazir, basically 3 halachas. He can't become tameh, he can't drink wine, and he can't cut his hair until he's done. And then he's done, he's supposed to cut his hair. So what does he do when he's done? So he's bald. Beishamai says he has to put a razor over his skin. Beisil says it's not necessary. He doesn't have any hair. But Ravavina says, when Beishamai says that it's necessary to put a razor over his hair, which he doesn't have. So tzarech vein like takana. It's necessary, but he's not able to. So what would that mean? That he never gets his full completion. He's never done because he never cut the hair. However, this statement of what's the pshat in Beishamai, that argues with Rabbi Pedas. Rabbi Pedas is probably the father of Rabbi Lozer ben Pedas. It also could be the son, because we learned that Rabbi Lozer ben Pedas had a son. So what does he say? That Beishamai v'Rabbi Lozer are medavar echad. Beishamai, Rabbi Pedas says that Beishamai and Rabbi Lozer say the same thing. Beishamai hada amran. Beishamai is what we said, that tzarech havar star, you have to put a razor over his skin, even though he doesn't have hair. And Rabbi Lozer, the Tanya, Rabbi Lozer, where does Rabbi Lozer say? It says, well, we have a brayse that goes like this, or Ditanan, it's a Mishnah. Ainli bayin yad, bayin regel, ainli tare lames. If the Mitzayra doesn't have a thumb, doesn't have a big toe, it's supposed to go on his right thumb and his right big toe, right? If he's missing his thumb, he's missing his big toe. So what do you put the oil and what do you put the blood? So Rabbi Lozer says you put it on the place where it's supposed to be. I guess on the stub. I guess that's what I mean. Now this is for the Mitzvah, the leper, Yatzaras, when he's getting his atonement, when he's being cleansed after he's healed. So one of the sacrifices requires that the blood of the sacrifice, and then from a jug of oil, is put on his thumb, and it's put on his toe. That's part of this, and then the bird is dipped into the blood of the other one. Yeah, Kayan wouldn't be able to have a defect. This is a Mitzvah. Yeah. So what do? Rabbi Lozer says you put it on the place and it's good enough. Reb Shimon Reb Shimon says you put it on the left. That's also good. What we're seeing from Rabbi Lozer is that what you're doing is you're putting it on to the place that it should be. You're putting it on it doesn't mean the phantom thumb. On the stuff. Just like Beishamai says that you put a razor over his body even though there's no hair there, which means that you can do the act without it, even though it's not, you make it like as if you're doing something, and that's going to be good enough. Now, over there it said tzarech, and who was it? Rav Chisda. Rav Avina said. Rav Avina said, "Tzarech vein letakana." That really it means that you need to, but you're not able to. Rav Pedas says no. It means that you need to and you are able to. And look, I have clearly the fact that he holds the same as Rabbi Elazar, that you need to. You put it on the place of the thumb, even though there's no thumb there. So too, when you're cutting the hair, you're making the motions of cutting the hair, and that's fine. So it's two pshatim in pshat and beishamai, two ways of explaining beishamai. Either it means that you need to and you can't. That's Rav Avina's pshat. Pliga de Rav Pedas, that argues with the way Rav Pedas learns that it means that you need to when you're able to.
Right. So does that mean that someone that doesn't have, this is hypothetical, someone who does not have penis, who then goes and takes a scissor, holds it up and goes, nope, not doing anything, puts the scissor down, is yoke steady, that they're going to cut his face? I know that I said hypothetical because, we're talking about hypotheticals.
I thought you were going to ask different. I thought you were going to ask that someone that's totally bald and he puts a razor over his face.
That's how I was speaking in my mind. Then I said, you think I'm definitely not.
Did he? Did he cut his face? Yeah.
The same question. That's how I started.
Okay.
So what's the answer? What's the cap? No value? No comment. No mixing.
I don't know.
I have a question about the market as well.
Yeah.
We started out talking about the Yahudi Yom Kippur.
Yeah. That every service is separate.
And every service is separate. And then we went to the Mitzvah. And it seems to me, like maybe I'm asking you to say, oh, I don't know. Is it just like in Yom Kippur, there are lots and lots of steps in a particular order?
That's how we.
There are a lot of steps.
Right.
Have to go in the right order.
Well, not the right order, but that every step, the entrance into this discussion about Mitzvah was that every step is separate. Just like in Yom Kippur, every step is separate. If it's built, and you have to start over. So you just start over from that step. That's how we got into this. And then once we got into this, then we started to talk about, let's say it was done Shalei Lishma. When you're starting over, does it delete? Does it not? Can you actually bring another sacrifice? And so we said you need to, but you're not able to. And now that's how it's this progression from the sprinkling of the blood on Yom Kippur. Every step is separated. Okay. Taner Rabbanan was taught in a brisa. V'lakach midam Hashem. He should take from the blood of the Hashem. Yachol bekeli, talking about that he's going to put it on the Mitzvah. Maybe he takes it in a vessel. Tamalaymer v'nasan. He has to place it. It says v'lakach v'nasan. He takes it. He takes it and then he places it on his thumbs. So manasina b'atzmi shulkain. Just like he doesn't use a vessel to place it on his thumbs, he uses his finger. So aflakicha b'atzmi shulkain. Also, the taking of the blood should be with his hand. We're not learning finger to finger. We're learning the body of the kayan to the body of the kayan. Just like the application is done with his body, so too the receiving of the blood is done with his body. Maybe you that's how you catch the blood for the mizbeach. That the chatas, that the asham is like a chatas. Ma chatas tuna keli. You have to catch the blood in a vessel always by a regular sacrifice. Af asham tam keli, you need a vessel. Nimtzat aimer. What comes out from this is asham mitzayir shnei kainim mekabel misdamai. That when it comes to a guilt offering of a mitzayir, I need two kainim there to catch the blood. Echad biyad, echad bekeli. I didn't know this before. One catches it in his hand, another one catches it in the vessel. The one that receives it in the vessel goes to the altar to put the blood on the altar. The one that receives it in his hand goes to the mitzvah and applies it to his thumbs. Tanan Hassam was taught over there. Okay. Any sacrifice that the blood enters into the kodesh, into the heichal, then the body of the sacrifice is not put on the mizbeah. The body is burnt at Beis Hadeshen. Outside, there was a place where they burnt things. So it wasn't done as a regular sacrifice. Nisrafim b'Beis Hadeshen. Like we say in the blood, if the blood goes inside, then everything else, the body is taken outside. Then the pasuk says that the clothing of the kohen that does that becomes tamei. Now we're discussing that what happens if there was more than one sacrifice. Why? Because the blood spilled, and you have to bring another sacrifice. So this is what it says: Kulam mitamin megadim. All of those sacrifices that are taken outside and they're burnt over there, they're all their clothing is tamei. All those kayanim that did that. When it's Beis Hadeshen and it's burnt outside on the Beis Hadeshen, Divrei Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. That's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon. Now, if you think about this, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon are consistent with their opinion because they held that the first sacrifice was also part of the second one. Was also because if I was in middle, I didn't start it over. I continued from where I was up to. So both of them are valid sacrifices. Chachamim Maimer and the Chachamim say, this would be the opinion of Reb Meir, only the last one, by kapara, because that was concluded the kapara. See what's going on? Reb Meir says that if the blood spills out in middle, I have to start over from the beginning. So therefore, which sacrifice is the one that's going to be burnt outside? Which one is going to contaminate the person's clothing? Only the last one. The first one was deleted. However, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon say it's not deleted. You continue. Rab asked Rab Nachman an interesting question. How many goats do you send out? One of the possibilities over here is that the blood of the goat spilled. So what would I do? I would have to go and get another goat and shecht it. One of the rules is when you shecht a new goat, it has to be a pair. So you have to get another goat. So now I have two goats. I shecht one of them, and the other one is going to be a sar hamishtaleh. I have two seirim hamishtaleh. Seirim hamishtaleh. It has to be sent away off the cliff. Right? The one goat was the sacrifice, one goat was pushed off the cliff.
You have to do the goral again on the new pair?
I think so. I think you would need a new goral. So, but Rabbi asks Rav Nachman, Amalei b'chiyedri mishaleh. He says, well, you're going to send out a whole flock? You're going to push a whole flock off a cliff? Amalei b'chiyedri seiref. And are you burning a whole flock? So he says, me dummy. Can you compare? Hasam like sivaisai, achit sivaisai. The pasuk, what is the pasuk? L'shalach isai la'azazel amidbar. It says it. That's a singular. You can only send one. Which one would it be? Itmar. There's a statement of Amiraim. Rav Papi Mishmei Rav Amarisha Mishalech. Papi in the name of Rav says you send the first one, the first pair. That's the one that was the first lottery. That's the one that gets sent. Rav Simi Mishmei Rav Amar Achar Mishalech. So there's a machlekes in the name of Rava. Do we do the first one or we do the last one? We understand the second opinion that says the last one because that's the one that was actually the atonement. Because remember, you have to start over for certain things. You have to start over. What does Rav Papi hold? The first one sent. He holds like Rabbi Yossi, where Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi ben Chalaf. He's in the generation of Reb Meir, Rabbi Elazar Reb Shimon is in that generation. He says that the mitzvah is always Berisha. Hey, Rabbi Yossi, where does Rabbi Yossi say this? The way the Gemara asks it, which Rabbi Yossi? But it doesn't mean which Rabbi Yossi. It means which statement of Rabbi Yossi did you get this from? Ilema Rabbi Yossi the Kupais. If you want to say it's Rabbi Yossi of the boxes, we're throwing us back into Shkalim. It's suggesting that we do Chazara on Shkalim. Over there it says the Tanan. He says, "Oh boy." The Tanan. Shalish Kubis, Shalish Shaisai, and there were three boxes. Everyone gave coins for the shkalim, and then they took three boxes and they would fill up those boxes with the coins. That's what they received. Shebehem Terminus Alishka Ve'Kosav Leim Aleph Beis Gimel. On those boxes said Aleph Beis Gimel. The first box came from the people from Eretz Yisrael that was right there. Second box came from the areas right around that. And the third box came from the people that were further. So Vitanya was taught in the Brisa. Amar Rabbi Yosi, Lama Kosav Leim Aleph Beis Gimel. Why does it say Aleph Beis Gimel on the boxes? Leda is Mem Necharishan Lahaviyam Menarishan Shemitz Berishan. Rabbi Yosi says that when you're coming to buy the animals for the sacrifices, which is taken from this money, the mitzvah is to use the first box first. See, Rabbi Yosi says the first box. Gemara says, Dilma be'idna dis chazoi kamaisa le'is chazi basraisa. Maybe because the first box was eligible first. Yeah, we're saying that the comparison is not perfect. The goat is not sent, the Sara Mishtalech is not sent away until the blood of the other one is sprinkled. The blood of the other one wasn't sprinkled. So it was never eligible to be sent away. It's only eligible to be sent away after the next goat was brought. So by the shkalim, that box was filled first. So it's eligible first, so you use it first. But over here, this goat was never eligible first because the kapara was never done until the second goat was brought. So the comparison is not, he's saying, Rabbi Yosi says, use the first one, but it's so different. Elo Rabbi Yosi de Pesach. We're talking about Rabbi Yosi about the statement of Rabbi Yosi by Pesach. Ditnan, or Ditanya. It's someone that designates a korban Pesach, and then he loses it, and he separates another one. Okay. And then he finds the first one. Now he has two sacrifices. Which one does he offer? The Chacham say, well, now you get to choose. However, Rabbi Yosi mitzvah is to use the first one. However, the second one is better. So if the second one is better, then you can use the second one. You see what's going on? Rabbi Yosi says that you use the first one. If that's the case, we go back to us, the first goat that was designated, that's the one that we're going to use. That's where we get it from, that Rav Papi Mishmei Rava that says use the first goat. It's from this Rabbi Yosi that says use the first carpetation.
Why isn't this a question?
Sorry? No, this wasn't sacrificed yet. He designated it, he just set it aside, then he lost it, and then he finds it. Okay. I'm gonna be with the yeshiva Shabbos and then Sunday also. Chaim, you'll do the share on Sunday. It's a new parak. Shikayach. Okay.
Look.
Have a good Shabbos. A good Friday.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos. Good Friday.
Thank you.
Okay.
Shabbos, Chodesh.
Okay.